Well, hello everyone. Good morning. Welcome to this knowledge and learning space from Pirani Academy, where together we will present different topics of interest in the world of risk management. I'm Isabela Campo, and it's a pleasure to be here today with all of you. On this time, the topic we'll be addressing is a very important one, ERM. We've titled it Introduction to ERM, Building a Resilient Risk Culture from the Ground Up. A very interesting subject from which we'll learn a lot today. So, to kick off this webinar, I'd like to welcome Alejandro Orrego, Pirani CEO, who will be directing this webinar today. Alejandro, hello, how are you?
Hi, Isabella. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining to this class, the monthly risk management school. So, as you mentioned, let me share my screen. There is. Great. So, what we're going to talk about today, as you mentioned, is we're going to talk about ERM and enterprise risk management. This is an introduction because this is a huge topic to dive into, but in the comments or in the questions that the survey that we launched in past classes, you mentioned, okay, we want to dive into the ERM. So that's what we're going to do. So let's start with what is ERM. So the simple definition will be, it's a structured approach to identify, assess, manage, and monitor risks across the whole organization. And I want to highlight the structured approach and, of course, the whole organization. And it seems obvious and it seems boring, but that's what we're going to talk about in the whole class. So one definition that I also want to address is the definition of risk, because we're talking about enterprise risk management. So the definition that I like the most, it came from the ISO 31000 and is the effect of uncertainty on objectives. And I really like this definition because I think is the core of what we're going to talk about. What is ERM? Because some companies, I mean, not some, it should be every single company has goals, objectives, a mission that they want to accomplish. So the risk is that company don't get to those objectives. That's it. That's simple. And if you see this definition, it's not talking about defensive or not even compliance. So I also want to take this slide that ERM goes beyond compliance. So what this graphic says, so because compliance is, are we following the rules? Compliance is about doing only what the law or regulation requires. And an example of that is a bank documents money laundering risks because the regulator demands it. But from the ERM perspective, is different. Are we managing risks in a way that supports our strategy success? So ERM connects risk management directly to the company's goals and decision making. So an example is a company objective is to expand into a new market. So ERM look at strategic risks, regulation changes, competition, culture to ensure that expansion is done. So ERM is about what could stop us from achieving our mission and how do we prepare. So as you can see, it's not only protect the company, comply, do what the regulator says, because as we know, the law or the regulators usually are slower than in the AML ecosystem. We say that regulators are slower than criminals. but also regulators on the law is slower than innovation. So if your company only do what regulator says, maybe you are a little slow into getting your goals or accomplish your mission. So also we want to talk about what frameworks are for ERM or for enterprise risk management that we can work with. So for today presentation, I choose two frameworks. There is a previous risk management school, there's some class that we give about the most important risk management frameworks. We talk about 9 risk management frameworks. So take a look. Isa gonna put in the chat the recording of that previous class. But today I want to talk about two frameworks again that at least for us are the most important. So the first one definitely ISO 31000 basically provides again the structure approach, a framework to get into the risk management. It has some principles. Again, this class is not about a deep dive of this framework, it's just to mention. But the structure, as you can see in this graphic, is the scope and the context or the criteria of the company, the risk assessment, identification, analysis, evaluation, risk treatment, monitoring on the right, communication and consultation on the left, recording and reporting. Take a look at that. That's the way of they try to explain the framework in a slide. Of course, there's more about it. And another framework that I really like is, and maybe some of you are working with, is the COSO ERM, came from the Committee of Sponsoring Organization. And look, this is the highlight. Maybe are you familiar with this cube? This is called the COSO cube. So look like define the organizational structure, board policies, management risk appetite, define objectives, strategy, operations, reporting, compliance, what could go wrong based on that strategy, risk assessment, likelihood impact, the risk heat map or the matrix or whatever tool you're using. Risk response is like the strategies that you're going to follow or you're going to treat, you're going to avoid, you're going to transfer, share, whatever. We also have a risk management school talking about risk management strategy. You can also take a look on that. Control activities, what procedures to ensure effective risk mitigation, if that's the path you want to follow. Information and communication and monitoring. So again, this is two completely different frameworks, but at the end of the day, it's like talking about very similar topics, as we're gonna see in a moment. But look, they sometimes repeat, like the process, risk assess, risk treatment or strategies, monitoring, communication. So let's put it in a different example, because another thing that ERM should provide is an holistic view of risks. Because no matter the size of the company, for example, there's some in a bank that's a huge bank, maybe they have a team to manage the financial risks, like markets, credit, but also a different team for operational risks. And even in some banks, there are some chief risk officer for financial risks and another BP for operational risks. Like this is like the different words. But also there are like reputational risks that usually are working within the operational risks or compliance risks. And maybe if the structure is big, maybe you have a specific team for compliance. But at the end of the day, ERMs should be connecting all those risks that the company is managing in a single objective, in a single goal. So for example, because at the end of the day, all those risks, either you working with different teams are connected with the strategy of the company. Because, for example, if a cyber attack occurs, that is an operational risk or information security risk, whatever category or team are dealing with, uh, it will be a customer data breach that is a compliance risk, but also is connected with loss of trust. So it's also reputational, but also with revenue drop, that this has a financial impact, and maybe it will affect the expansion of the company and expansion delays. So this is a strategic risk at the end of the day. So as you can see, ERM is connect all the dots, because all the risks are linked with the goal of the mission of the company. This week, I found a very interesting post on LinkedIn, just to give you another idea of frameworks. All the credits are for Basil Aldi. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think he works in Audi is Arabia, and he put this post on LinkedIn that this is for him the hierarchies of risks on in an organization. So for him, there's our operational risks, like the day by day, like issues, human mistakes, fraud, cyber, and there's another layer of risks, like tactical risks, like products, planning, program, projects, middle management, and a third layer of strategic risks, like competition, regulations, merchant acquisitions, business model, infrastructure, but it's business decision tied to business strategy. So, and this, again, this is just a point of view, but every company can have some definitions of categories, of hierarchies of risks for every organization. So at the end, ERM is about connecting all those risks, either of different teams or different tools, but how is this connecting with the strategy and the goals of the company? Because also we talk about the integration and or integrated risk management. So again, the goal of ERM, of enterprise risk management, is resilience and value creation, because we want to enable the company to achieve the mission or the objectives or the goal of the company, not just risk avoidance, not just protect the company from the regulator. This is the big idea that I want to work with. So why ERM matters today? First one, business environments are volatile and complex. That's the truth. Like, the risks that we're facing today in 2025 are not the same that we're facing 2 years ago or even 6 months ago. So you need to be on the way, on the path of managing those emerging risks every single day. As we mentioned before, the risks are interconnected, like cyber attack, operational, reputational, financial impact. It's not different teams managing different risks for different companies. The risks are for the same company at the end of the day. Of course, the board, the CEO, or the investors, the shareholders, the VC, whatever model you're working with, they want an integrated oversight of the risks of the goals of the company. And ERM helps companies to take smarter decisions, build trust and accountability, and create long-term sustainability. So the invitation of if your teams, if you're working with ERM, so ask yourself, we doing it in the traditional old way, when is silo in departments, every team doing what they think is the best, with different frameworks or ideas of what risk management should look like. There is a focus on compliance and checklist. Is reactive, is after the event something happened, I should act to that prevent that happen again. Then again, that's good. This is the first step, but you should not stay in that way, because we launched our podcast, a risk management school podcast, and our first guest, Norman Marks, talk in that episode that sometimes risk management looks like list management. There's some companies that have a list of risks and they manage that list and that's it. And he says you should not do list management. You should be doing ERM. So what should look like ERM today, or modern risk management? uh, Organization wide and integrated, linked to strategy and value. Again, not to compliance and the regulator. Proactive, anticipates and prepare what's going on, what's going to happen. And when we do in this way, we really talking about integrated risk management or enterprise risk management. So the building blocks, or the recommendation of what should look like the ERM or the enterprise risk management in your company, we select like five uh, building blocks, like five uh, ideas that are very important. So the first should be governance and leadership, because if we're talking about the ERM, it should be connected with the strategy, with the goal, with the mission. But at the end of the day, the leaders of the CEO of the board is like they define that mission. And so leaders set the tone: transparency, accountability, ethics. The culture of a company is usually the company of the leaders. So if the leaders and the CEO and the board are talking about risks and talking an open conversation, what are the mission, what are the goals? Because if you don't know what is the mission of the company or the goal of the objectives, it's very difficult to do risk management linked to that. So governance should set the tone. Set the tone. Board and senior management must be actively involved. ERM should be seen as value protection and plus value creation. So how my company, the company that I work with, is going to achieve their mission, or what could prevent it from achieving. And without top support, and that applies for culture, you can put this in culture, ERM, or change management. Without the support of the board, of the leader, ERM becomes paper exercise or list management. The second block will be risk appetite and tolerance, because again, if you think that ERM is protect the company, avoid them failure, basically you're telling the company, I won't do anything risky. I'm going to eliminate all the risks, and that's not the idea of ERM. Actually, is how can we achieve our missions? So, if from that perspective, there are some risks that you're going to accept. That's why we're talking about this four main strategies for treatment the risks. Remember that, okay, we have transfer, we have avoid, we have mitigate, but we also have accept. So what are the risks that you're going to accept in order to get that mission? So the risk capacity, the risk appetite, risk tolerance, are you familiar with those terms? Are you willing to accept some of those risks in order to get the goals of the company? Please do. And of course, from the operational perspective, from the day by day, do you have a ERM process? Because I think that the most important thing here, in order to transcend or to evolve the risk management, is the risk management is a cycle, not a checklist. Because the list of risks that you have today won't be the same list in a year or in 6 months. Or even the risks that maybe you rate today, and maybe the impact is 1 and the likelihood is 2, that rating also will change over time. So you need to understand the process as a cycle. So you identify a risk today, you assess the risk today, you treat that risk today, but maybe you need to re-rate or reassess that risk in a while and do it like a cycle, like this. And of course, is the fourth will be integration with the strategy. So ERM is not separate from strategy. It supports decision making. So I'm sorry to put the same example, but if the strategy objective is expand internationally, so ERM should ask, okay, you need to assess the market, the what are the risks of entry that market, what are the regulatory challenges, whatever thing that prevent the company to get that mission done. So ERM ensures that growth plans are resilient and realistic. And the last but not least, and I think one of the most important, we also have risk management classes, schools about the importance of culture and communication. I think this is the core, is like culture is how people actually manage risks daily. So in a strong culture, there should be open communication, accountability, learning from mistakes. Everyone is talking about the risks, not just the risks or compliance team. And in a weak culture, there's silence, there's fear or retaliation, the yes boss mentality is whatever the checklist do, I'm gonna do what the checklist says. So again, that's the importance of leadership. So that is a cycle and is connected. But at the end of the day, the employees should feel safe to speak up. What are we going to do to get the mission done, to get the objectives done? Because without the right culture, even the best ERM, again, is just theory on paper. So there's a concept that I really like, and I don't know, I'm sure that you're very familiar with, that is the 3 lines of defense. Because in this idea, the risk management of the company is not just a task for the risk team, it's a task for everyone in the company. So the first line in the operation is like, who's better to understand the challenges from the sales or commercial team? It's not the risk team, it's the sales team. Who's better to understand the challenges of the marketing team? The marketing team, not the risk team. So the first line is the first line doing risk management. The second will be risk and compliance. So what is the, I don't know, the challenge is this in this framework or this idea is the word defense. Because it's like, it's not, if we're talking about the ERM, enterprise risk management, is avoid, it is not avoiding risks, it's not about compliance. The idea of defense is like you are here to defend the company from something bad. So the the proposal is basically, and again, this is not my proposal, is the new teams of ERM is talking about the 3 lines of ERM, not the 3 lines of defense, but the 3 lines of enterprise risk management. uh, that's why some people that work with ERM hates the idea of 3 lines of defense, not because the 3 lines itself, is because the idea of the concept of defense, because we do in risk management to grow, to advance, not to defense. So you get the idea. So, but I think this is a very cool definition of ERM at the end of the day, because is the operation team is doing the first step of the risk management. And then the second line of the risk and compliance team maybe gonna ask some question that maybe the operational didn't see from the oversight or from the first view. And of course, the internal audit will be the third. And there's also this new idea of the 5 lines, not just 3, because the fourth will be external audit, and the fifth will be the regulator. But again, you get the idea. Is the ERM is not just rigs doing compliance, is growth and get the objectives of the company. So we all always you're gonna look this, you're gonna see this graphic in every single risk management tool, but trust that is important, like the cycle of identify the context of your company, the risks, do the risk rating evaluation, do the risk treatment, monitor and report what's going on, continuous improvement, learn from your experience. So we add the second layer because this is risk management. But to understand the whole idea of enterprise risk management from the new perspective, this is the second layer of governance and leadership, risk appetite, a structured process, but it's basically the circle in the middle, integration with the strategy, and cultural communication. So, and again, it's a cycle. It's not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tasks and we're done. It's continuous. It's a cycle. Every day you need to do this. So again, this class was an introduction. We can deep into every single step or building block, like okay, like culture, that again we have several risk management school talking about it, or risk appetite or governance. You can also put it in the chat or in the survey what specific building block, what specific step you want to dive into. And of course we can have several classes about it, or even the framework. Maybe you want to dive into I don't know, into the COSO cube, because it had very interesting ideas on topics. But this is like the overall conclusion or summary of all different frameworks. So the next thing, remember that the risk management school is like the first 30 minutes is like the theory, the class, the presentation. The next 20 minutes is how can we do that theory in Pirani, in the software. And of course, we're going to have the questions and answers space. So yeah, we can have now to the risk management. I don't know, Isa, you can put, if you, there's, I know, let me check in the assistant. I know there's some clients from Pirani in this risk management school. Also, there are some people that don't know about Pirani at all. So if you want to give it a try, you can create the account of Pirani in just a few minutes. I think in this show, in the next, in the further classes, we can put the QR or the link to, you can put it in the link in the chat, but also we can put the QR in the presentation in order that you can try the software yourself. Yeah, because I think this is just to book a meeting. So let's do like, how can we translate this graphic, this figure, this diagram in the software? So I don't know, some of you are are familiar with the software, like the dashboard. Okay, this is the from the operational risk management perspective. So I don't know if all of you know that you can track different. Now let me go to English. That you can have different risk management systems into Pirani. So maybe there's a team working with information security, or there's some specific team working with compliance risks. So we have different systems for every single team do risk management. So if you, from the compliance perspective, okay, you can work with your compliance obligations. You can track all the compliance obligation that you need to follow, the checklist of regulation that you need to follow. So you can do that, but also the team of operational or information security can do their manage of those risks in the same single platform. So this is from the integration or integrated perspective, you can do Pirani to do that. And let's go back into the software to show. I'm gonna work with the COSO cube in this experiment because I think this is very graphic and explain a lot. So now we have integrated risk management. So we're gonna talk about the define organizational structure, board policies, manage appetite. We have the process that are shared for different systems. So you can track all your process map in Pirani. So what are the technology process? You have the hierarchy. So this may be the software development, the technology process beneath. Maybe you have the talent management process. So beneath the talent management, you have the talent acquisition. Beneath the talent acquisition, you have the training, the organization goals and the requirements. So you can track all the structure of your company. You can declare in Pirani what are the missional process, what are the strategic, what are the support process. So that's the the first step, or in this case, or in the understand the context of your company. So you can translate that in Pirani. So define objectives for strategy, operations, reporting, and compliance. So that's why Pirani have the indicators module. Because remember that we're talking about, okay, what you want to do, what are the goals of the company? If ERM is about getting the objectives done or complete, you need to track those objectives in some way. So all we have only in the enterprise plan, you can track, okay, the goals of my company are in like get into new market or growth or profitability or whatever, expansion, whatever you want to call it, or fraud to zero. You can track all the goals of the company, and for every single goal or you can put or objective, you can put a specific indicator, like can be a key performance indicator, it can be a key risk indicator, it can be a key control indicator to connect the risk management with the strategy of the company. So sure is like you can do this. You can track, okay, how is the revenue going, so you can update the indicator and see the detail or what's going on in see comparison comparative with different cycle. And again, so this is the risk team or the operations team connected with the risk management strategy, and not just risk management strategy, with the whole strategy of the company. And remember when we talk about the three lines of ERM, so every single person in the company should understand what are the goals, what are the risks of marketing, what are the risks, and what could go wrong in HR department. So that's why in Pirani you have unlimited users, because what we want is everyone in the company can connect risk management with the strategy of the company. So that's why in Pirani we don't charge for every user. You have unlimited users in order that you can invite as many people as you want to do ERM, enterprise risk management. So you don't have to say, oh no, I would love to invite the operational or the teams, but if I have to pay every single seat for that, it's like, no, maybe I just remain that only risk management team do risk management. So that's why we have unlimited users, basically because we believe in ERM. So, what are the impact of likelihood of risks, like event risk assessment, or what could go wrong? Of course, we have the module of risks, where you can create all your list management if you want, the list of the risks that could go wrong. Of course, the risk rating, you will have the likelihood, the impact. You can customize this as you like. And so maybe you have your list from risks from last month or from last year, and you want to help, okay, how can I identify new risks in order to keep the wheel going and flowing? So that's we create the feature of suggest risk. Okay, we help you with AI to understand what's going on today. The last risk management school, we talk about the AI risks and the MIT risk repository in order to help companies to identify those emerging risks every single day. So you can do this every day in order to keep updated and not working with the same risks every time. So I think we could cover that. And of course, how to manage risk, share it, avoid it. Again, you can customize the fields, and you can, okay, what are the, if you're working with the 40s of rigs that tolerate, treat, transfer, terminate, or you working with the usual methodology, accept, mitigate, avoid, you can choose. So for every single risk, you can select, okay, this risk I'm going to tolerate or accept it because that's aligned with my risk appetite, or I'm definitely going to mitigate that specific risk. So you can start with this. And if the path you choose is to mitigate, you can create all the controls in order to mitigate those that risk, if this is, again, is that the path you choose to follow. So of course you can do the risk response or a strategy or whatever name you want to follow. Procedures to ensure effective risk mitigation, control activities. Sometimes there's not just mitigating the risk, sometimes it's understanding what's going on. I want to understand the market, the context, the risks, the control itself. And of course, you can do action plans to do that, and you can create every single plan, every single activity, tag the people. I think this is one of the best features that we have. Is like you can create all the activities that you want to track, that you want to follow, and you can like tag people like Isabella, because we working as a company, as a team in doing the risk management that we need. So that's the way to start that, because again, maybe you define the risks today. This is just the first step of the process. You need to understand the risks, understand the market, mitigate it, whatever. So you can do that also in Pirani. And the education and awareness and effective policies and practices, we have different things to do that. For example, or help center, you can also use the copilot of Pirani to, because sometimes one barrier that we face is, no, but maybe the marketing team is not used to talk about risks. They don't understand the concept, they don't understand the cycle, the idea. So we try to help companies with that. Is, for example, the help center. If you want to, we can suggest risks if you're not familiar with the terms. But also we have the academy, the training center, the risk management school, the podcast, is because we want to help companies too in this matter, because we understand that risk management is not just technology, it's also culture. It's a challenge of understand the concepts the ideas. So that's why we're here, trying to help you uh, to explain these concepts in the easiest possible way, so you can invite as many people, because every single activity in the risk management school in the Risk Academy of Pirani is completely free. So again, you can invite all the company. You can ask Pirani, okay, I need to make maybe a specific workshop. Maybe we want to a specific speaker to talk about, our teams, to trying to understand the concept. We can also provide that, include Pirani for our clients. So we also help in that education and awareness and effective policies. You can send the podcast or the recording of every single class. And of course, the management reviews and audit assesses, we we cover is like we from the you can create specific roles in Pirani for auditors to just read information, but we also have the audit logs to tracking, okay, what is everyone doing in the platform. So the audit logs, so this is the very tactical perspective to, again, reports. But we also have the module of reports, either the custom reports, either the report builder, if you want to create a specific report for your regulator, for your board, you can do it in Pirani in the reports area. Or maybe you are more familiar with creating your reports in, I don't know, Power BI or Tableau. We also integrated with those platforms. Because if we're talking about culture, maybe you say, okay, but my team is already doing reports in Power BI, so I don't want them to help to create the reports in Pirani. No, okay, no problem. We connect all the information of risk, enterprise risk management that you have in the software with your preferred uh, reports builder. So that's another way to improve or enhance the culture. Um, and of course, in also the also in monitoring is very important, what's going on with events, what's going on with the risks that actually happening in the company. So that's why we have the reports of events. You have the tracking of every single loss and recoveries of every single incident. For every single event that happened, you can classify it for if it was an issue, a near miss, an incident, tracking every single loss and recoveries for every single event, the picture of every single incident, and you can connect every single event with processes, controls, action plans. If you want to run the bow type risk analysis, that by the way is going to be the next class, you can do that as well. And but at the end of the day, if you also want to have an audit for the system, we also have an audit system in Pirani to run the internal audit reports, to run the audit programs, to have the calendar of audits. So basically, you can run all the process of ERM in a platform like Pirani. So that was my 20 minutes of the practical aspect of ERM. So I don't know, Isa, if we have any questions to to
Yes.
address.
Yes, we have one question. This question is from Bernard Parku, and he'd like to know, Alejandro, how can we incorporate information security risk management into the enterprise risk management framework?
Oh, that's a very good question. So, well, in Pirani, we have a specific system for that. So the new module or the new aspect that we need to address, it will be the information assets. So you can track like, okay, what are your information assets? Where are you putting your information or the information that you need to protect? Is in the CRM, I don't know, is data server, is physical information? Where are that information that you need to protect? And for every single information asset, you will be able to define or to qualify the confidentiality, the integrity, the availability. If you're working, for example, with the ISO, but if you're working with any other framework like NIST, you will be able to create new variables of qualification for the information assets, and you can track all the threats and vulnerabilities of those information assets for you. So, for example, you can track the same process that you define for operational risk management will remain the same because the context and the process of the company are the same, either if you change the risk management or the audit. So you can maintain the processes, the process map or the process structure of the company, but with different and specific risks just for the information security perspective. So you have all connected in here, because remember the slide when we mentioned that everything is connected is like in this slide. So maybe another layer, thank you for bringing it up, is like information security, or everything is connected, because sometimes information security is beneath the operational risk management, but it's because it's a failure in process or policies or technology. But some teams put information security in a different independent layer, but at the end of the day is also enterprise risk management. I hope that answered your question. We have space for a little bit more. Isa, we have more.
Until now, we don't have any more questions. So if anyone has any questions, something you'd like to add, feel free to leave that on the chat box or on the Q&A model, and we'll answer them right away.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much. Remember that this class, every single risk management school, we gonna send you the presentation in PDF, the recording, and you can consult it every time with your teams. So thank you very much for joining this September class. In October class, we're gonna talk about both type risk analysis. So we're gonna dive into how could we improve the understanding and the rating of the risks. So I hope to see you all in the next class of both type risk analysis. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Thank everyone for assisting. See you next time.